Thank you for tuning in to the best parenting show on the internet, Post Daily Dose.
It's the Post. It's the Post. It's the Post. The Post Daily Dose. It's the Post. It's the Post. It's the Post. The Post Daily Dose. It's the Post. It's the Post.
Hey, good evening, Facebook family. Welcome to another episode of Post Daily Dose with me, your trusted parenting advisor, faithful guide, and servant on the healing journey. What's my name? Big Papa Bryan+Post. Good evening, everyone. Hope you're doing fantastic. I'm going to jump right into this episode because I've got something important to say. This is the episode is titled Generational Trauma. But what makes me think about this is everything that's going on with immigration and the detention centers. And I think that we're spending a great deal of time, as we should, focused on, the abuses and the neglect that's occurring at these detention centers. I mean, just the other day on NPR, I heard that they found 350 children from infancy to 18 in these detention centers. This particular detention center that was made for 100 adults. Like these detention centers were not made for children. They were made for adults. So there were 350 children in a space fit for 100 adults, and they were sleeping on concrete floors and without enough food, without enough water. There were 8-year-olds caring for infants. So it's easy to focus on that because obviously there's lots of media attention going on right there. But what we're not taking into consideration is that the experience that these children are having right now. So I'm going to separate the teens from the children. I'm going to say from probably 12 up and then 12 down. From 12 up, they're going to have an opportunity. Hey, good evening, Kirsten. They're going to have an opportunity, hopefully, to talk about this for years to come and try to make some sense out of trying to escape, whether it was Honduras or the Dominican Republic or coming through Mexico and, getting caught at immigration and being put in these detention centers with all these other individuals, being separated from their families. They're going to have an opportunity to be able to make some sense out of this kind of chaos that they're experiencing right now. But 12 and below, they're not really going to have that opportunity because they're just children. And they're eventually going to get sent back to their homes. Hopefully they're going to get reunited with family members. Hopefully they're going to get reunited with parents. And I say hopefully because it reminds me of Christy and I have an adopted son. His name's Kevin. He's 27 years old. And Kevin talks about when he came from Honduras, he rode the train. So he was 12 years old. He rode the train, just like you see in some of the movies about illegals coming crossing the border into the U.S. And he eventually crossed the border because he thought his parents, who he had been separated from them from the time he was 4 years old, he thought they were in the United States, and that's why he came. So when he landed in the U.S., he was apprehended, and eventually he was put in the care of Catholic Charities, and he made his way eventually to Richmond, Virginia. Now, Kevin never reunited with his family. He ended up being in one group home after another, one therapeutic foster care after another, one residential treatment center after another, until eventually he came to our group home at 15, and we kept him until he was 18, and when he aged out, he didn't have anywhere to go, so Christy and I brought him with us back to Oklahoma. Now, Kevin never found his family. So I have a hard time believing that many of these children are going to be able to just go back home, be sent back wherever. Some of these kids are young enough, they don't even know where they came from. Sometimes Kevin doesn't even really know where he came from. In fact, the story has changed 3 times since I've known him. It's been, first it started as Honduras, then it was Puerto Rico, now it's Colombia, it may be Mexico. We don't really know. That's the challenge with youth, with a child being put in stressful circumstances. This is a traumatic event that these children are living through right now. And this trauma, so here's my real concern, and here's what I don't think we consider, and especially we don't consider if we're politicians. Because so much of our political stance is yes, or it's do the right thing, or it's, send them back to wherever they came from. It's always black or white. But here's what we oftentimes are not thinking, is that this is trauma that these individuals are experiencing. This is a humanitarian issue. This is about other human beings who are coming into the U.S., it doesn't matter where they come from, and they are being subjected to traumatic environments. And they are being housed, they're being caged like animals in these traumatic environments. And what we don't understand is that this is prolonged trauma. It's a prolonged, overwhelming, unpredictable, stressful event. These individuals had fantasies, had these ideas in their minds about what the U.S. was going to be like when they got here. And now it's turned into a nightmare. And it reminds me of an Audible. I love Audible. I used to be just a voracious book reader, but now because I tend to travel a lot and drive a lot, I'm big into Audible. And I really recommend it because I can listen to a book over the course of a couple of trips. And I don't have the same time or focus for regular books. But I listened to this Audible recently called The Devil's Highway. And it was about a group of illegal aliens. Started out, I believe it was 27 of them, crossing from Mexico into the U.S. And they were following, the guys are referred to as coyotes, and the people who pay the coyotes are referred to as pollo, chickens. And so the pollos follow the coyotes through the desert. And the coyotes are supposed to have these maps, have these areas mapped out and be able to take these people across the border into safety. Well, they got into Arizona, into the desert, this span of the desert called the Devil's Highway. And they got spooked by a bunch of lights or something. No one really knows kind of how it all worked out. Hey, Tracy, no one knows how it all worked out. But anyway, they got off track. And at one point, they had been traveling in the desert for 12 days, and they tracked. So they have these professionals known as trackers. They track they track all the signals of the groups, and they call them herds. They tracked this group of people, and they said if they had continued on that same path, they would have went in a complete circle. That's how disoriented they were. And so by day 12, they started to die. By day 22, half of them had died. And then eventually someone found them. And so it was the Yuma, known as the Yuma 16. I think 16 of them had actually made it through. So my number's a little off. Listen to the Audible program. So they refer to them as the Yuma 16. And from that, they spanned all these different water stations and stuff, and then like crazy environmentalists go and tear down the water stations because they feel like it's messing up the natural environment. Just weird shit that we as humans have a tendency to do. But I just think about that in the continent. There were kids dying, and I think about the guy with his 2-year-old who just drowned. This is the problem that we are looking at. Yeah, we're doing all this containment, and we're preventing all these people, whatever, coming from the U.S. It's just this big fear-based dynamic, and a lot of my dear friends who are like radicals and like really are wanting to stop this. It gets pretty intense, but what none of us are doing is we're not figuring out a way to make this work for everyone. No one's, as Stephen Covey said, no one's working on a win-win, because there is a win-win in this situation, but everyone's operating from such extreme fear. But the reason I bring this up is because we're not thinking about the implications of this experience 10 and 20 years from now. This kind of social trauma, this is a social trauma. This is a trauma that is impacting a society of people. Multitudes of people This is the kind of stuff that spawns civil wars. This is the kind of thing, what's going on right now is the kind of thing that leads to a World War III. When you have children who have imprints, their imprints of the United States of America is of living in these, being held hostage and captive. Remember, children don't think like adults. Children don't think I'm going to go to the promised land and make a lot of money and send it back to my family and get my family, and we're going to escape from these conditions that we've been living in. Children don't think that way. Children follow adults. And children create fantasies in their heads, but the fantasies that children think that children create in their head, remember, a child can't even really have an abstract thought process until they hit 8 years old. Before 8, it's very black and white. So you have these children who are trying to they're following these adults into what's supposed to be the promised land. All of a sudden, they're ending up in these dog cages. They're separated from their parents. They're deprived of food. They're being neglected. Some of them are being raped. Some of them are being abused. And however it all washes out, these children are going to probably end up back in Mexico, or they're going to be like Kevin. They're going to end up in Catholic Charities or some other nonprofit, and they're going to be dispersed throughout the U.S. and put in foster homes and adopted out, which is a whole, I'm not even going to get into all that. That's a whole nother injustice that occurs. But they're going to end up being sent home, separated from their family, because they don't know who they are. They don't know where they come from. They don't know who their family members are. And they're going to grow up. And they're going to grow up with imprints of the trauma associated with the United States. And there's going to be an intense fear, and that intense fear is going to breed a hatred, because that's the only thing that underlies fear. Underneath hatred is fear. And underneath that fear is usually some kind of trauma. So these individuals, this whole group of people, hundreds, and eventually there will be thousands of individuals, small children, who will grow up with this intense hatred of the United States of America. And this is how you get terrorism. We are breeding terrorism from our own fears and our own insecurities and our own prejudices. We are doing this. We in the United States, we are breeding terrorism right now because we can't be open-minded enough. We can't be creative enough. We can't be courageous enough. And we can't be loving enough and understanding enough to figure out how to create a win-win scenario for these brothers and sisters from other countries coming into the United States, trying to escape deplorable conditions so they can make a better life for their family, because we're so fearful that we can't figure out how to make this a win-win scenario. Ask farmers in Alabama. Ask farmers in Alabama what happens when there's a mass deportation of all the immigrants who are working in the fields and doing all the work that your average black person and white person and Indian person that doesn't want to do. Ask those farmers what happens. No one wants to do the work. No one wants to do their labor. There is an opportunity for a win-win here, and we're not looking for it. And everyone is operating out of such intense fear, and I could just go deeper and deeper and deeper into this. And it's a sad situation, because it's not me. It's not me really directly who's going to be impacted by the circumstances that are going on right now. It's going to be my children, and it's going to be my grandchildren. It's going to be your children and your grandchildren who are going to be impacted when all of a sudden there's terroristic attacks coming to the United States 10, 20 years from now, when you've got 12-year-olds who are ready to die for a cause against a bad guy. That's what's going to happen in our children and in our grandchildren's lifetime. And it's a sad thing, because we have the ability to change that. We have the ability to do something different. And I just something I wanted to share with you guys, because it's, and I've got friends on both sides of the coin. I really do. I have radical friends on one side, and then I have other friends who are just like, we gotta draw a line. We gotta build a fence, which is a absolutely asinine belief. I mean, it's ridiculous. But anyway, it's just something I want you guys to think about. I mean, it is a much bigger issue than 350 children being locked in dog cages. It's just a much bigger issue. I just saw something the other day. A church had put a picture of Jesus and Mary inside of a kennel on their lawn. I mean, it's like, we can do better than what we've been doing. And I just want to encourage each and every one of you, continue to just hold up prayers, hold up your love, hold up your positive vibrations for everything that our country's going through and what these individuals, what these brothers and sisters are going through. And, with enough vibration, with enough love, with enough courage, hopefully we can bring a very, very quick end to this. And so, just God bless each and every one of you. Remember, in any given situation, we always have two choices. We can continue to react from our past imprints of stress, fear, generational trauma. We can continue to react from our imprints of slavery. My mom was listening to a song. I love this song by Billy Ray Cyrus and Lil Nas, the Old Town Road song. A while back, I posted this, my Canadian brothers and sisters. My Canadian posties got me a cowboy hat, and I did an Instagram post with that Billy Ray Cyrus and Lil Nas song about Old Town Road. And some dude redid the song, and it was talking about spanking his children. Well, he has no idea. Unfortunately, he has no conscious awareness that his hitting his children, his spanking, comes from slavery. He's whipping his children, and he's glorifying it to the background of this song, which is a fantastic song, from a slave perspective. And it's just, and we'll listen to it, and we'll think about it, and that'll just feed a seed of fear in our mind that tells us that whipping your children and hitting your children is the best thing for you to do, to be able to shape them and grow them up in the way they should grow. And I just feel like we can do better. So we can continue to react from those same imprints, or we can stop. We can take 3 to 10 deep breaths, and we can choose love. God bless you. Big Papa loves you. We'll see you tomorrow. Hey, and happy 4th. I'm planning on being on here, but if some reason or another I'm not, well, happy 4th of July to you, and I'll be seeing you soon. Good night, everyone.